Good morning, everyone. My name is Steve Allison. I work for Adobe, and I look after all our video distribution technologies. So anything from Flash Video Server, to DRM, to analytics, and advertising around that, which is quite handy because today we're talking about something called Primetime. And Primetime really brings together that whole area, okay, all the way from distribution to monetization and all the clever stuff that we can do around that. Which is good because we all know there's a tremendous amount of video. It's not just video appearing on all different kinds of devices, but it's different kinds of media content that contain video, user-generated content, stuff inside digital magazines. All of that video should be treated in the same way as far as delivery and the workflow about getting that out there is concerned. But also, it's not just about having the video on those other devices, but how we can start to sync that with second screen applications. So either the same kind of content in different ways on other devices, or content which is linked between what goes on the big screen and what goes on the smaller screen. And I think delivering the video, pretty much an understood process these days. We all know that delivering the video is, if you like, the easy bit. We've got multiple bit rates, so we can start to do adaptive streaming, take advantage of different kinds of network connections. We've got great DRM technology to protect that video. We've got lighter weight encryption technologies to make a simpler but safer, more secure stream. So we can do that video delivery bit quite well. But it's not just about that video delivery. We also need to start to monetize how that happens. So advertisements are one of the ways that people do that. So pre-rolls, mid-rolls, overlays, all those kinds of things. People are pretty used to that kind of activity happening. But how do we get that same experience with the multiple bit rates and the protection if we need it to work when we're using those adverts in the stream? And not just the adverts in the stream, but how do we start to coordinate what goes on between our video window and the rest of the environment that consumption takes place in? We're seeing now a lot of televisions connected to the internet, set-top boxes connected to the internet, so we can start to use the same kind of videos that we use on the web, but because we've got that bigger real estate, there's much more that we can do. And obviously this doesn't work for all kinds of data, all kinds of video. If it's a film, the last thing you want are things flashing around. It just annoys people. So big screen experiences, great, we can do those. We've got the capability to do that over IP. But if it's a smaller screen, if it's not major films, then actually coordinating activity between what goes on in the stream and what goes in around it is actually quite a clever thing to do. As I talk more through this, I'll start to bring out how we can use analytics, how we can use metadata inside that video to start doing a lot of this advertising a lot more relevantly. Okay, at the moment, advertising is not a particularly good experience, so we'll talk about how we can improve that. Now, in the olden days, this was quite easy. If you wanted to do great video, all different kinds of platform, and you just had to do Flash, and you'd reach everywhere. So things have changed slightly. So the point about Flash was consistency, getting the same capabilities across all of those different devices. Okay? There are now emerging other ways of doing that. So HTML5 is not ready for prime-time video, for high-quality video where video is your business, because it doesn't have any of the controls around it, any of the controls over delivery or protection or anything like that. But as a UI framework, actually, it's a very rich thing. So people now are starting to build HTML5 player environments that can then call proper video technologies underneath that. Okay? So we've actually put a lot of the Flash technology into HTML5. So all the Canvas stuff and all the animations and the CSS regions and those kinds of things came from Flash, and we gave those over. The religion about Flash actually was a lot less than you would imagine. The point was, can I get something that will play exactly the same way across multiple devices? So you've got two options. We can go in the browser using good old Flash Player where it exists, or I'll use my HTML5 and I'll call through to something else. That something else is called the Primetime Media Player. So what we did was we've given options for doing stuff in the browser, either through Flash or through the PMP, or to use Air. You guys familiar with Air? Adobe Integrated Runtime, Flash out of the browser. If you're building an application and you want it to go on Android tablets or smart TVs or whatever, Air is our preferred route using Adobe technologies. However, if it's browser-based, then we can use the HTML5 and we can use the PMP model. So what does the Primetime Media Player give you? Imagine all that great stuff about video that we've got inside of the Flash Player. So your bandwidth detection, your bitrate switching, your DRM capability, your captioning, your metadata reading, all of that stuff we've pulled out and made available as a set of native components. Okay, so the first version of this is a Java implementation for Android devices. Android phones are really fragmented, so getting consistent players, we've got Air on those phones. Some of those phones have got Flash on them, but the way that those phones are being created, you don't get a single technology across all of them. Java's there, so we've used Java now to give you everything that Flash can give you in video natively now on that device. Now that's important because if we go back to my earlier picture, it's not just about the video. There's the metadata, there's the advertising you might want to do around that, there's the analytics to understand the consumption. So the framework gives you hooks in to those technologies. So it will natively understand what an ad server is, what VAST is. You guys do VAST? You want to do advertising here? Yeah, a few do. So VAST and VPaid and all those great standards for swapping information about ads. We understand that. The player understands it, just like Flash understands it, just like Air understands it. But it's still got the multiple bit rates and the DRM protection and all those other things. So again, we're going towards having a consistent runtime experience, but now we might enact that not just through Air and Flash, but through a native set of players. Okay? So that's quite cool, because it means that we can actually start now to deliver a much simpler workflow to get that video down to those devices, whether that video be the ad or whether it be the actual content that people are consuming. The Adobe Media Server, notice we're dropping Flash from everything now. So Flash Media Server is now the Adobe Media Server. Flash Access, our DRM, is now Adobe Access. It's a sad day for Macromedians everywhere. Anyway, so our server here can deliver video streams applicable to any kind of device with a screen. Usually, that boils down to two protocols. So either HLS or HDS, which is our implementation of an HTTP streaming standard. At the moment, some 85% of all internet traffic goes through our servers, goes through the Adobe Media Server. But it goes through as RTMP, as a true stream. Now, true streaming has a benefit of being extremely low latency, but there are problems with scalability on a true stream. You've got one-to-one connections between client and server all the time. So a lot of people now are looking to HTTP streaming to make that scalability issue a lot less of an issue for them. There are also a lot of cost benefits for doing that. It's simpler to replicate caches, web caches, than it is to replicate out physical servers in order to take up the traffic. So we've got a server that can take an asset and can deliver it in any protocol that you want that we support. So true streaming protected, peer-to-peer, multicast, HTTP for Adobe, HTTP for iOS devices, and increasingly now a number of set-top boxes and Android devices that also natively support HLS. So you wang in an asset and it automatically delivers it in the appropriate format for that particular device. For a lot of us, protecting that content also becomes really important, especially when you have studio content. They are slightly retentive about how to protect their content. So everything must be sealed, delivered, and delivered to the customer in a tag to make it really secure. So we've got a technology, Access, which enables studio-approved DRM and in a single workflow. So the same encryption process, the same business rules, the same rules about consumption and how often you can see it and output protection and all those great things, but still now delivered to multiple devices. So we've started to make a single method of encryption that will work across all those different devices. So whether it's iOS or Android, whether it's Flash or native, doesn't really matter. That workflow for your DRM is truly consistent across that. We do a lot of that through the actual media server itself. So a lot of people today are very interested in being able to take an asset and just deliver it in the right way for that particular device. So not having a different version for iOS and a different version for Flash and a different version for Android or whatever it might be, but to have a single asset or a single stream or whatever it might be, and then deliver it in the right way for that device. As I said, increasingly now, that is in HTTP delivery. So HTTP, we can pick up that file, we can fragment fragment it and encrypt it at the same point and deliver it down to those devices. So now we don't have to mess around with multiple copies of the asset and multiple copies in different kinds of DRM scheme. We can do all of that dynamically as it leaves the server. So the back-end operation is a lot simpler. And in fact, this workflow is getting a lot easier anyway. You guys familiar with ultraviolet? DECE? Common encryption standard for DRM systems that can decrypt that content. Great. We're a member of that, so our DRM supports ultraviolet. That also means that by default, we support things like the common encryption standard in MPEG-. Okay? So what's nice about that is you have a file container that has a standard way of encrypting the content within it. And then all that changes is the method and the technology that you use to acquire that license key. Okay, so things are becoming much easier. MPEG-, we can do that here. We'll very soon be able to do that in the Flash player. We can do it natively in PMP anyway. And we can do the DRM with that at the right point so that we have a single file now instead of multiple files for different DRMs. So slowly moving to a much easier workflow. So delivery is easy. You got the video. There are some great technologies there that enable you to go out and deliver to lots of different kinds of screens, multiple bit rates, adapting all the time. Fantastic. But there's a business behind this. There's a reason why we actually want to do that delivery. And there are basically two models there. You have subscribers, so you get people to pay. Fabulous if you can do that. Or, usually, the other option is ad-funded. So you have adverts around that content. But the problem with that is that the experience of adverts at the moment is, frankly, pretty poor on devices. There are a number of reasons for that. For starters, the workflows are completely different. So you deliver your video using Flash Media Server or Wowzer or whatever your technology might be. Flash Media Server, you want to do it properly. But your actual ad is coming from a completely different server. So you've got your wonderful multiple bit rates jumping between your actual video content, and then you get this crappy little file delivered, which is the advert, progressively downloaded into your browser usually. That's a really bad experience. It's a bad consumption experience, let alone anything else. If you're doing analytics, the analytics are normally about the quality of the stream and not necessarily about the adverts that are being served there. So Primetime, this concept we have around Primetime, is actually bringing that process together. So I'm going to put my adverts into my video stream. And HTTP, of course, is beautiful for this. You've got a stream, you chop it into little bits. It's really easy to insert stuff between those fragments. So now I can insert my adverts into my stream. So as far as the player is concerned, again, it doesn't matter what player is, you've got a single stream. So now you don't have to start calling different servers to get that advert in there. It's all in that single stream as far as the player is concerned. That also means that all of your heuristics around bitrate adapting and switching and everything else are completely working all the way through, whether it's video or whether it's the ad. The consumption, the experience of the consumption, the quality of the consumption, therefore, is much greater. At the moment, most ads, as I said, are a single file. It's progressively downloaded, you wang it in there, you put it in the cache, and it plays. There's no adaptive streaming or anything, so it goes for the lowest common denominator, and you get a pretty poor encoding in order to work on multiple devices. If you don't have to do that, if we can apply that same just-in-time fragmentation to our ad assets, you've got a much smoother workflow there. So Primetime brings together not just that ability to push out our content to all kinds of devices and push those ads out in the same streams, but also now to start thinking about analytics and how we make a better ad decision. So we've got that single workflow with the media server doing its encryption, doing its fragmentation, doing its delivery in HDS or XLS or multicast or whatever you want it to do, down to a player that understands all the things that you're trying to make, that you're trying to do for your business. So it understands the technology around the delivery and also the ads and the analytics. So single publishing workflow. We've then got advertising, an advertising server. Adobe bought a company called Auditude about a year ago. And Auditude is a video ad server. Its job is to make a decision about what ad should that person be watching at that point in time. So if I can take that precision of what ad should be in front of those eyeballs, put it into the stream, I've got a much better ad experience. Relevance is king. if the ads are relevant to the particular content that you're watching and where you're watching and the device you're watching it on, then maybe actually an ad-funded model would work a heck of a lot better. How do you make sure it's working better? Well, optimize it. Use your analytics in order to understand both who you're serving an ad to and what ad should be served to those people. Anyone familiar with Site Catalyst? Audience Manager, former Demdex technology? No? Okay. So Site Catalyst is a technology from what was Omniture, now part of the Adobe technology stack, and it's a web analytics collector. It hoovers up information about what the user is doing in their session, where they've come from, what pages they've viewed, etc., etc. It also understands video. So the videos that you watch, the bit rates that they were on, the size of the video that you were watching, and exactly how much was on that screen, all gets measured and reported on by Site Catalyst. So now I've got a real-time analytics going on so I can understand what the consumption of that video is. We've then got Audience Manager, the former Demdex technology. And this is a behavioral segmentation technology. What are you doing? What have you just watched? Where have you come from? How do I use that information to segment you and give you an ad that actually makes sense for you at that point in time on that device? Okay? If we have that ability to make those, to make that understanding of the consumer, then we can focus an ad that is relevant to that person. If you focus a relevant ad, you get more click-throughs, you get more relevance. Those adverts won't be as annoying as they are to most people. But also, there is a different propensity to consume ads on different devices. If I'm laid back, lying on my sofa, watching my big telly, internet connected, fantastic, I don't mind a few ads. I'm comfortable, don't really want to move to get the control, it's fine. If I'm on my device, my phone or something like that, I don't want a lot of ads. They're just going to annoy me and use up all my bandwidth so I get charged more on my phone bill. So how do you then decide the appropriate number of ads for a particular kind of device? That's where we brought in our test and target technology. So test and target is a if you like, a traditional A/B testing. So I've got two creatives in my advert. Which one works best with a particular segment? Great. It also allows us to test what we call the ad pattern around a device. So an ad pattern is the number of adverts and where they appear in that program. Okay, so like 3 pre-roll ads, 2 mid-rolls, and a post-roll, something like that. That pattern, you can use test and target to test whether it works on a particular kind of device. So instead of going, I think people don't like watching ads on a mobile phone, you can empirically test that. You get data, and you know how many ads will work, how many ads will not work on that particular device. So again, we're starting to match the right, not just the right ad, but the right ad in the right numbers for that device, for that person, based upon what they're doing at that point in time. We've been doing this in websites for years. Yeah, go to any website, Amazon, all that kind of stuff. The personalization that happens. Who are you? You're coming back again. Here's the adverts. Why can't we do it in video? It's exactly the same technology. So we've brought that forward to enable the same approach to happen with video. So the workflow that we have traditionally has always been, if you like, separate silos of technology. You had all your flash players, you had your DRM stuff, you had the media server, and you could use them all together, but there wasn't a single workflow that helped you to put the delivery and the ads together down to that particular device that you're looking at. So Primetime, again, builds that workflow. It builds that workflow that gives you a path from, this is what I've got content that I need to be delivered onto all these different size screens, links that in with the advertising and the optimization so that we get a closed loop feedback now, all held together by the player. Player is probably the single most crucial thing. If your player doesn't work on multiple devices, if it doesn't work the same way on multiple devices, if it can't do the analytics gathering and the ad insertion on multiple devices, you're not going to get very far with your business strategy. So bringing all that together is what we've done with the players, so either in Air or in the media player that I talked about before. So notice that this involves a couple of things. We do the seamless ad insertion and we do the integrated reporting. So let's have a look at the ad insertion part to begin with. So Auditude is a video ad server. If you're playing a piece of video, it will insert into that stream the ad that it decides is going to be the one that you want to see. So depending upon the device that you're on, the information we know about you, etc., it comes up with an ad that it thinks will suit you at that point in time. And there's actually a huge array of information that we can use to make that decision. Obviously, what device are you on? Where are you? What's the publisher? What's the content? Are you using someone's branded content? Is it a specific genre? If it is, can we use that information to make a better decision? The day party, what time of day is it? Different adverts at different kinds of day hit different kinds of audience. Frequency capping. You don't want to have the same advert in front of people's eyeballs time and time again, because it fails, it just annoys people. Exclusivity. One of the unique things that we can do in Auditude is actually specify where an ad will appear. So we can specify it will be the first ad that someone sees, or the last ad that someone sees, or I don't care, it can go anywhere in the middle of those two. So you can actually specify where that's going to be. Then we've got all the interesting stuff around custom targeting. So this information here is mostly sort of fixed. You make up a business rule and you don't really have much more information about it. At the custom targeting stage, that's where we can start to inject this real-time information about the user, the device, what they're doing, etc., etc. So we feed that information in to provide context to the rest of those business rules. Result is, you get a video that matches, or is more likely to match, that person's interests at that point in time, and that works on the device that they're using. Then it can get really interesting. So live events, simulcast events. A lot of people take their television feeds or satellite feeds or whatever, shove it through an encoder, and spit it out onto the web. Great. The only problem with that is, usually it contains adverts already. Worst case, you're going to give someone adverts that were meant for a television. Okay, that's really unfocused, really bad. But broadcast feeds tend to have markers in them. SCSI markers, BRB, maybe even just the informational time text coming out of a scheduling engine. If we have that information, we can strip out those ads. Again, the beauty of HTTP, you're chopping up the video. Great, so I'm going to chop on those boundaries and remove those ads, replace them with something more appropriate for that person at that point in time. This works also with the big red button. VOD assets, simulcast streams, you kind of know what's going to go on. Yeah? You know where those ad breaks are and everything else. Live events are kind of harder. You don't know whether play is going to be really exciting and play gets extended or whatever it might be. So you can't have a scheduled hard stop because you don't know whether it's going to make sense or not. Preferred route is the famous big red button. Someone sits there, they go, okay, boring part of the game, press the button, bang, in comes that ad insertion. So we can still do the dynamic decision about what ad, even if we're making a decision literally a couple of seconds before it goes to the advert break. Normally, you make a decision right up front. So when you first say, play, I want to watch Batman, play, it makes a decision. It goes, oh, wait, he's watching Batman, give me the ads, and all the ads around that film get given to me. Now that's great, but in a live event or something that's longer, you might want to have an ad more relevant to what happens at that particular point in the movie, for example. So then we can make an ad decision, not at the front, but every time we hit one of those ad breaks. We've got Site Catalyst. I can read the metadata out of that stream. So if there's metadata in the stream about the script or what's happening in the film or whatever, I can use that to start to trigger off some of these decisions about the ads that I'm going to put in there. Okay, so I can identify where they are, and I can swap out or change or put ads in. How exactly does that happen? So it happens in a couple of ways. If you do HTTP, you end up with a manifest file that tells you about those fragments, the order that they're in, where they are, etc., etc. So great, so I've got that manifest file there. Now, my Auditude server is also going to give me a manifest file. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring both of those together on the client. Okay? So the actual video engine gets handed a final manifest file that contains both of those other manifest files. So information about the movie, information about the ads. Puts them together, bang, you've got a single stream, so all of your adaptive streaming and everything else works beautifully. But I've still got customized, targeted adverts for that person, that device, etc., etc. So a really nice way of doing it. If you're making decisions and doing that blending on the client, of course, all of that information that I might have from Site Catalyst or Audience Manager or any other metrics that my player can capture can be used as part of that decision making. Now, you might not want to do the stuff on the client. This does kind of assume that your client is going to be intelligent enough, powerful enough, actually to do that kind of work. Televisions, some set-top boxes, they're just not powerful enough to do that. So we can do the same thing, only now we're going to make that manifest meshing happen in the server. So the player only ever gets, and doesn't need to worry about anything else, it just gets that final manifest file, and bang, it just plays that with its targeted ads every time. So actually, we did this with NBC during the Olympics. So they had their live feed coming out from the Olympic Broadcasting Service. Inside, there were little markers, Scotty 35 in their case, that said when the ad breaks were going to be. They read those, they cut them out, they made a decision, and in fact, they did it on the player side, they put it together and had the targeted ads for people. And actually, I was in the Silverlight player as well. What is happening with the world? No more Flash, Adobe doing Silverlight stuff. It's mad. Anyway, so this technology has been proved. Of course, now, as I've said, delivering the video, we understand. We understand the technologies around that. Delivering ads, okay, we understand ad ops and how that works. We've now got a much better understanding of how we can put those together to make it seamless. But what about the optimization bit? What about the understanding if it's working or not? And again, this is where the Site Catalyst integration comes into play. Site Catalyst is collecting real-time information about what I'm doing, where I've been, what I'm watching, all that information about the video file being consumed there. So it can give me that overview. What streams have I got running? What are the ads running in there? What's my money doing? What are my rates of people starting and finishing doing? It gives me all in one glance what's happening business-wise with those streams. Of course, if we then see that something's not really working, we can start to drill into that to better understand the consumption. So here I've got my audience. The horizontal line is the audience numbers, and the vertical lines are where I've got my ad breaks. Okay, and you can clearly see that people are getting cheesed off. The more ads I serve them, the more people leave the site. That's bad. That means, my percentages start to drop. The money I'm making on those ads starts to drop because people aren't watching it, so my revenues start to suffer. If you don't understand what the consumption pattern is, you can't make those decisions until much later. Normally, an ad ops team will do, at best, a daily, at worst, a weekly, trawl through all the data to go, oh, bloody hell, that didn't work. Or that worked really well, why can't we do it again? This is real-time information coming back there. So I can now go, okay, it's not working, something's not right. Maybe there are too many ads. Should I change those ads? Or even, what are those ads? So we can drill further and say, okay, these are the ads running in those particular streams at those points in time. And again, that overview. What's my money doing? What's my ad doing? How long has it got left to run? Is it meeting its targets? Etc., etc. At the end of the day, it's a business. So maybe you have a badly performing ad, but hey, you didn't do the creative. You got a contract that says it needs to run in order, by a certain date, your completion rate has to be there, so you might just have to leave it running. You could, though, go back and go, no, this isn't working, people aren't looking at it, the click-through rates are really low, change the ad. If I know that an hour after I've released this thing, I can change that ad. I can change the targeting. I can refocus my attention to get something relevant, higher click-throughs, more money, everybody's happy. But having that information is the core feature. By bringing the analytics side together with the ad ops side and the delivery side, you can get that view of what's going on, how it works. So I know that the quality of all of these is going to be really good, because I can use my adaptive streaming and everything else on it. But I now want to understand the business process itself much more accurately. Does anybody have any questions? You'll hear in the news this Primetime, Project Primetime name mentioned. And there are really two approaches to that. The first is just the player. A player native that can understand the ads, the analytics, the delivery method, the DRM, the captioning, or whatever else you're using. So on one side, it's the player that's all important. On the other side are those services, the DRM services, the ad services, the analytics services. So those will become available as web services from Adobe and from our partners. So you'll be able to call in and use those bits that you want from Primetime. But the player, I can't stress enough, the player is the real core of it. So why we put so much effort into pushing Flash out there? Not because it was Flash, but because you needed that consistency, that ability to do the same things on different channels. Okay, so now we can do that with Flash, we can do that with Air, we can do it natively with the PMP, with the Primetime Media Player. I just asked my own questions then, sorry.
You mentioned the Air solution works for HTTP.
Yes.
Does it also work for RTSP and RTMP?
Not in the same way. So in HTTP, whether it's Adobe's or whether it's HLS, we can actually insert it into the stream. With RTMP being a true stream, we can do that on the server, but we can't adapt it individually for each and every person because your scalability goes mad. So for that, you would use your traditional pause stream, insert ad, remove it, unpause stream, and play.
But your solution offers that. We don't have to include the logic with play.
Right, no, so that traditional approach is available through the plugins for All Intrusion, Flash, and everything else. So yes, that's there right now.
Okay. Second question, do you also offer a solution for somebody who already has a multi-server infrastructure, needs that feature?
Yes, so the individual elements of Primetime are available separately as services. So if you have a manifest file or a delivery capability and you just want to do the ad insertion and targeting, then yeah, we can do that. Maybe not, unless it's HTTP, maybe not as absolutely precise, because obviously your fragmentation boundaries are going to make a difference between when things start and stop. But in theory, it's just, if you've got a manifest file, yeah, that's all we need, and we'll link the ad side and the targeted ads in with that manifest at the player side. So yeah, you should be able to decouple from all Adobe.
Is this a research or is it a viable product?
Sorry?
If I'm interested in that, can
Yeah.
I buy it or do I have to develop it?
So again, that would depend upon what you wanted to do. So the Primetime Player is available. You can buy that and you can brand it the way that you want. You familiar with OSMF, the Open Source Media Framework?
Yes, sure.
Okay, so same basic idea. You've got a window and that plays a video and that understands it. But if you want to customize it, you can do that. The services, over this year, as we approach Christmas, more of those will become available as a web service call rather than as a physical infrastructure that you would have to employ. So yes, you can have, if you like, an off-the-shelf offering, or you can have an off-the-shelf offering that you then later customize and adapt to your exact needs.
They already have the player that is running on OSMF.
Yep.
Can we get this not as a player from you, but as a plugin?
Yes, so there will be a branch of OSMF which will do the same stuff, which will have all the Primetime capabilities as part of OSMF. So yeah, so if you're using Flash or Air and OSMF, then yes, there is a direct path to access all of this content through OSMF. If you're not using OSMF, then do so if you're using Flash, or you use the native components instead. Anything else? Cool. In that case, thank you very much for attending.